Ikemoto recently had a Q&A session where he answered a little bit of questions regarding Boruto. This is part of the Boruto anniversary theme events that we have been getting, and this was released following volume 8 that is about to be published for everyone to consume. Well, I guess we have a little bit of leaks of the Q&A, and there's a lot of information that is pretty cool to hear concerning Boruto's age preference and Boruto and Sasuke's life as rogue shinobi. So we're going to be discussing all of this new information in this video, starting off with the first question that Ikemoto was asked. The question is, Boruto has said that age doesn't matter when it comes to romance, but what age gap is actually within his acceptable range? The answer that Ikemoto gives to this intriguing question is, if they were younger than his little sister Himawari, who is currently 12 years old, he might mind it a little bit. However, when it comes to someone older, the sky is the limit. No matter how old they are, he genuinely wouldn't care. Now this is pretty interesting because it might reveal that Himawari is actually a little bit younger than we thought, because we believe that Himawari was 13 and Boruto was 15. However, from this information right here, it might be that Himawari is 12 years old. Or what I think is probably going to be the case is that there is actually a 2-year difference between Himawari and Boruto, but Himawari's birthday might be coming up soon, which is why to us she should be 13, but her birthday might be coming soon. Or it's simply that we got it wrong the entire time, where there's actually a 3-year difference between Himawari and Boruto. But I personally go with my interpretation. But this is pretty interesting because there is some potential hints when it comes to Ada and Boruto. A lot of people mention the fact that Ada's a little bit too old for Boruto in that sense. But since Boruto personally doesn't mind when it comes to the age difference, those people who believe in the ship of Boruto and Ada, it could be something that ends up happening. Personally, I'm not a shipper and I really don't care, but I know that some people probably would. So it means that anybody who's older than his sister, Boruto personally wouldn't mind at all. So Sarada, Ada, anybody who's older, Boruto wouldn't mind. And due to the fact that there are hints that Ada is starting to like Boruto over Kawaki, we do see this being reflected in Boruto's fight versus Mitsuki, where Ada thinks Boruto is just too cool. And we see the way that Ada looked at Kawaki during that arc. Ada legitimately said that Kawaki is a coward. I don't think that the love that she has for Kawaki is going to leave per se, especially with the fact that we have Sumire and Sarada who told Ada about the fact that they like Boruto. Imagine if Boruto has all 3 of them who like him. That would be something pretty interesting, but I hope the plot doesn't focus on that. Let's keep Ada with Kawaki. Boruto should not take that from Kawaki. But this is a pretty interesting question that we have. But the next question is pretty interesting and a little bit more serious. And the question is, how did Boruto and Sasuke manage their meals after leaving the Leaf Village? And this is the answer that Ikemoto gives us. The main food source was fish and wild birds caught from rivers and the sea, which they hunted using lightning style, and shuriken also doubled as part of their training. Additionally, they would occasionally gather wild plants and mushrooms. It seems that boiling and grilling was their primary method of cooking. Now this is pretty interesting because I'm really fascinated about this rogue life that Sasuke and Boruto had. Sasuke was a previous rogue shinobi, and although he was a rogue shinobi, he wasn't homeless, he wasn't wandering about like a nomad. These guys are actually living this nomadic lifestyle where they're moving around, constantly being put under pressure, versus different rogue shinobis. We have previous information that tells us that at times Boruto had to fight ninjas from the Great Five Nations, even though he did not want to kill them at all. We see that before he ends up meeting with Kashinkoji, Boruto almost ended up having to kill a few of them, where Kashinkoji was that option that allowed him to escape without having to fight them. I really think this is an interesting part, and I would love to personally see maybe a one-shot, maybe even a movie where we see a little bit about Sasuke and Boruto's life as rogue shinobis. And this fact of almost using lightning style in a way of your everyday life, goes exactly with information that we have previously received. Something that is pretty cool about the utilization of chakra and how science and shinobi lifestyle ends up coexisting. We see from Kodachi, who released this previously, that scientists who are ninjas like Orochimaru and Kabuto are able to use chakra in pretty unique ways, and it all comes with their personal understanding of chakra. Things like the Raikiri is only possible because somebody has an in-depth understanding of lightning. The same thing applies with Genjutsu. Those abilities occur because somebody has an understanding of how people perceive the world. Kodachi tells us in the past that every time something about the world is revealed through science, new jutsu are born. In the near future, ninjutsu that meddle with computer networks and ninja who can manipulate electronic devices will likely emerge. Or perhaps they already exist. This is pretty cool for me to see, as we have characters like Denki that I liked a lot in the past. We could potentially see those characters, especially with the fact that we have this almost age of shinobi is over, where we see more technological based ninjutsu. I hope that we have an arc that maybe focuses on those renovations that are potentially made, but that would be something that is cool to see. So for Boruto to really master lightning style, he had to understand what lightning really was, and we see with his slow applications of it in ways that don't necessarily deal with combat, those parts were part of his training, not just because Sasuke wants Boruto to actively use these ninjutsu, but because Sasuke wants Boruto to actually comprehend how lightning style truly works, its elemental properties, and how it could be used. And this is what really allows these creative ninjutsu that Boruto has used. So Boruto using the Uzuhiko means that Boruto has come to understand planetary rotation, planetary chakra that the planet possesses, which allows him to utilize this ninjutsu. So I really like seeing these applications of ninjutsu when it's not necessarily dealing with combat, and that is really how a ninja ends up growing, by understanding the world around them. So being a scientist, or at least understanding the elements that you are using, is key in being able to take yourself to higher lengths when it comes to being a ninja. Now the next question is back on a little bit of romance, and the question being posed here is, Chocho used to view Kawaki as a handsome guy, but how did her perception change after the activation of Omnipotence? Is it the case that she used to think the outsider Boruto was handsome, but now feels like the 7th Hokage's son, Kawaki, is the handsome one, or something like that? Ikemoto's answer to this is indeed. Ever since that day, she perceived that the Hokage's son, Kawaki, has suddenly become handsome. Furthermore, regarding Boruto, who has grown in various ways and returns to the village after 3 years, she seems to think he's as handsome as always. So that's pretty interesting. Basically, Boruto back in the days, he didn't look that good according to Chocho. He was a bum. He was your average typical Joe, and Chocho didn't find him handsome. However, Kawaki, who she did find handsome and mentioned multiple times in the past, when the Omnipotence ended up occurring, and she looked at Kawaki, who she believed was Boruto, she was like, yo, when did Kawaki start looking good out of nowhere? And now, after Boruto changed, not the old Boruto who was a typical guy, you feel me, your average Joe in terms of looks, when Boruto came back with all the drip, with all the swagger, all the change, she looks at Boruto and because she deems that it is Kawaki in her mind, she's like, oh, that's the simple evolution. Boruto always looked good according to my memory. The only guy who really changed was Kawaki. So both of them are simply good looking chads Boruto and Kawaki could pull, and that's basically what is being revealed here. Now the next piece of information that we get is concerning Mamushi. First of all, we have a comment from Ikemoto who said that drawing Mamushi was one of the hardest things. I'd really imagine. We already know that Ikemoto was the guy doing all the shadow clone work, so drawing Mamushi must have given him flashbacks, but he did say that drawing Mamushi was pretty hard, as he mentions right here. So I think that was pretty cool to see, as he actively drew Mamushi again. But the other piece of information we get about Mamushi is exactly how his abilities work, and this is what we learn about it. Mamushi can divide into multiple bodies. There is no limit to their increase. However, as the number of bodies increase, their intelligence drops, eventually declining to the level of an insect. causing them to lose the ability to make sound judgments. They can sense gazes directly through them and temporarily see through the field of vision of others. This is pretty interesting, especially the latter part, which basically confirms a theory of mine that I had in the past, basically saying that if you are staring at Mamushi, he can tell exactly who you are and exactly where you're at. This is why Ada stopped using her Sharingan to look at Mamushi, because Mamushi has this ability, and it's pretty cool to see because Jira also knew about Mamushi's ability, so Jira must have an innate understanding of all the abilities of the Senju, which allows him to be this powerful dominant force and really understand them at a higher level. But also what is pretty interesting is the fact that Ikemoto discusses they almost become like insects and they do not make sound judgments where their IQ lowers quite drastically. And this is why I believe that we saw some fluctuations from the power scaling, where characters like Chocho were able to beat Mamushi and kill him at times, while Boruto in the past struggled with Mamushi. When Mamushi doesn't have so many clones, his intellect is higher. He can make sound judgments, which means how he amps his body and how he decides to control himself. Where when his intellect drops so much, as we saw when he came to the village, his sound judgment is lowered, thus the way he amps himself is quite different. This is why one of the Mamushi clones, when he gets angry and actually amps his body, is able to kill the other, because the other is not making the sound judgment to actively amp his own body. This is why Boruto can struggle with Mamushi when he is only one person with all the intellect and with all the abilities to make sound judgment, while when he multiplies and loses the ability to make all these accurate decisions, his sound judgment is lowered. Thus Chocho is able to defeat him because he's not smart enough to actually do the right things that are necessary to defeat him. Plus the fact that all of those were simply diversions to get more people to have eyes on them to finally locate where Ada was. I think this is a really cool ability and a cool nerf that Ikemoto gave such a amazing ability as to have all those different strengths. So this is all the information that was released. We're also going to be getting the data books when it comes to the previous entire story of Boruto Next Generation. So I'll be making videos here and there revealing all the cool information that we end up having. Let me know if you would want anything specific about the previous arcs that we have seen before and including the prophecy arc in the comment section below. I'll be very keen to see you guys' idea. But if you want to get more information about a previous interview that Ikemoto made, make sure to watch this video right here.